Human nature can be the most scariest thing in the world, the most horrible, but it can also be the most beautiful thing in the world, you know. And we go through life learning all sorts of lessons, and we either become one way or another towards ourselves and other people. And there's two ways that can go. One is you can become a very bitter, miserable person, and the one is a very happy, wise, loving, caring, and eloquent person. There's a lot of lessons you have to learn on the way to achieve that. So in this live stream, I'm going to be speaking about a whole bunch of stuff. Yet again, going to be speaking about reality and the strangeness of it and my own interpretations of it. And maybe humanity, which, I'm not expert in humanity. And here Yvette Scheinbart, good to see you. Hope you're keeping well. I'm not expert in humanity, but I have my own perspectives and opinions. So what I'd like to say is thanks to everyone at Patreon for your support. I know I've been a bit quiet, but I've been programming every single day. And yeah, it's all thanks to you guys. I really appreciate that. If anyone would like to support this project I'm working on, you can for as little as $1 by clicking the link below. And it's basically on Patreon where I show all sorts of stuff. I've been a little bit quiet, but things are being a bit hectic because I've been stuck on database and this and that. Anyway, let's get straight into it. So lately, while working, I've been thinking about, I do some research on quantum physics and so forth and so on. Always like to keep up to date on that every now and again. And, one of the key takeaways that I've taken into consideration is, how unbelievably complex reality is, but also how strange it is when we attempt to observe it on a subatomic and quantum level. In the last 10 to 20 years slash 30, there's been unbelievable breakthroughs within this field, which is ultimately being putting a lot of confusion towards a lot of physics-based theoretical frameworks that have been created over its civilization. And I think one of the key things we're finding is that there is a strangeness to reality. In a lot of cases, reality seems to be holographic and it seems to be light based. It seems to be frequency based. And this is what we're finding over and over again. There's these invisible realms of frequency, waves, and energy. And we keep continually finding out crazy and strange things. And I've got some predictions for that we're going to continue to keep finding out about the extraordinary, strange nature of reality. It is a quantum interdimensional frequency based reality. All the science is continually pointing in this direction. All the latest discoveries are pointing in this direction. And I think when you combine those fields of interest in science with the understandings of out of body experiences, OBEs, NDEs, near death experiences, psychic phenomena, and so forth and so on. And you do enough research into it personally, and based on the research you can do, you begin to start finding out that a lot of these things that we were not sure about or just doubted because they just sound crazy are yet and yet again just turning out to be true. Like, for instance, we know about superposition and we know about quantum entanglement to the point that we're actually creating machines and devices. It's no longer observational facts slash theoretical framework. What it's turning out to be is something that's actually empirical enough to be implemented into real life functioning technology. And so these concepts and so-called theories are not theoretical anymore when they're solidified into reality and behind actual processes that yield very physical results. And so two of the things that we are finding out day after day to be incredibly true is the reality of superposition and quantum entanglement. Superposition is the ability for a particle to be simultaneously in two places at once. Not necessarily a particle, because people are still coming to understand this, but I would say energy. is having the ability to ultimately be in two places at once. And that energy expresses itself into physical manifestations that begin to show us that two particles can experience something called quantum entanglement or superposition, where over thousands of miles, if not thousands of light years, things are quantumly entangled beyond the realm and limitation of physics and space time. And that's what ultimately quantum physics and superposition tells me, is that there are dimensions and realms within reality and all around reality that extend beyond the physical limitations of a linear space-time framework. And I've spoken about this in my last video, where in order for a linear space-time experience, a moment-to-moment experience to exist, time ultimately, there needs to be a realm outside of time that exists as well. So, and there naturally will be, as a natural process of deduction, because you're speaking about a realm of reality, a unified field of reality, and within that unified field of reality exists what this reality we're experiencing now, which is these physical biological bodies where we're moving together through time in a linear framework. We are moving forward in time. We're not moving backwards. We're not moving sideways. We're moving forward. And as far as we know, we're moving forward at exactly the same rate. Maybe the perception of that rate changes and differs. So if it's not strange enough to consider that reality exists, it's somewhat even stranger to consider that it exists in a real-time environment where everyone in reality is simultaneously existing in real time, which is quite strange if you actually take time to think about it, because somehow this reality is here it is, and somehow time exists, space and time exist. But at the same time, what also happens to exist is linear time, moving from A to B forwards, not backwards. So I think that's incredibly noteworthy and strange when you really take time to think about it, because a lot of people have these ideas that we're living in a simulation. I personally don't believe that. I believe we're living in quite a divine reality. I believe there's an element of divinity and an element of a natural evolutionary process simultaneously coexisting. But in order for reality to have started to exist in the first place, is quite a divine and supernatural occurrence, because ultimately everything had to have come from nothing, but even nothing is something. It has to be. Maybe not in our conventional human understanding of it, but everything shares one complete total frame of reality that all reality can exist in. There's no two nothings that two everythings can come from. Not that I know of, at least anyways. It's quite a strange, perplexing concept and topic, but ultimately what I'm saying is, no matter how many people there seem to be, no matter how many personalities, no matter how many realities there seem to be, there's only one core overlapping and overarching reality that is the container of all realities and all experiences. So, what we're beginning to prove and find out time and time again is that our conventional understanding of physics is not complete. It's, in a lot of aspects and cases, still quite theoretical. And we're finding out that yes, there are these quantumly entangled realms, these unified fields of existence that are interwoven into every single aspect of our reality. We are so when you begin to understand what I'm saying to you, the doorway of opportunity in terms of what can occur and what can exist in this reality, it vastly opens. You begin to start questioning the ability for psychic phenomenon to exist. If superposition has been proven to exist to the point that they are actually implementing it and creating it within technological computers, then we know that there is this underlying and all-pervasive field that affects and influences and connects everything in existence. So when you understand that that is a reality that is becoming more and more empirical every day, it's becoming empirical means to experience evidence. So when you're able to experience it, it becomes ultimately empirical, factual based evidence. And we're experiencing superposition and quantum entanglements in the technologies that these things that were once considered theories are now proven to be true, particularly in quantum computers. And so, what that's happening to be able to show us is that, wow, there's an invisible field that all reality exists in, and we exist in that field. And we don't only exist in it, we are part of that field. We are made up of the fabric of that field. You can call it God. God, the glue that holds together all reality, that holds together the universe or universes. So much yet to be discovered. But basically, it's more and more proving that room to explain the phenomenon of psychic activity. Like, how do people have experiences where they know something bad is happening to a loved one, or they know that, um, they just know things and they turn out to be true, those things that they happen to know. And so that's quite incredibly interesting when you start seeing that there's invisible fields of reality that are interacting with this physically known reality as much as we happen to know it. Because then you begin to be able to see the composition of your own consciousness, your own nature, your own biology. It's not just physical, it's quantum. You are a quantum being. It's impossible for you. This is a quantum reality. If you exist in a quantum reality and you're interwoven thanks to the unified field and the fabric of all unified reality, you're ultimately a quantum being, right? Which is, okay, what does that mean? You are a quantum being. It means a lot of things. It means that your consciousness is not entirely local. It means that your consciousness is non-local. Your physical body may seem local, your mind and your brain and your isolated thoughts may seem local. But when we starting to prove over and over again that yes, there is a unified field, yes, there is this quantum realm of interdimensionally connected reality or realities, you begin to start to see that humans are so much more than we know and so much more than we've understood. Because if we're making breakthroughs in understanding that reality is so much more than we know and so much more than we've understood, then all of those discoveries apply to the composition of our own nature and the composition of our own being, because it's one unified, quantumly entangled field of existence that everyone and everything in existence happens to exist within, but is connected by that fact, is quantumly entangled and superimposed by that fact. So, what does this mean? It means that basically psychic activity is real. And I think people experience it a lot, whether it's through intuition, whether it's through inner promptings, whether it's through dreams, urges. We experience this sense of knowing. And the way I see it is there's a part of us that is connected to the knowing, and then there's a subconscious part of us that is not connected to the knowing. And so that will translate in your dreams and visions in two different ways. One is you will have a precognitive experience where you somehow gain access to what is. Thank you so much for reminding me again. Good to see you, God Heart Guardian. There's two ways this plays out. The one is, I'm just going to write that down. I keep forgetting. I've got so much in my mind. I've been coding like crazy. I'm going to listen to this in the background. So there's two ways it plays out. There's a part of us that is, in a way, super conscious. I don't know how much, but basically every single bit of information that reality has to offer, the void, is the fabric of your own being. It's the fabric of your biology. It's the fabric of your body. So in that way, you are simultaneously quantumly entangled and interconnected with every single piece of information and variability that has ever and will ever exist. It's literally the fabric that makes up your biological, physical, conscious, and quantum existence. you're not just a physical being, you are a quantum being, right? So I think that's a really incredible realization and discovery. And so there's two ways it plays out. So somehow our consciousness is connected to these two fields of awareness. The one is uh, varying degrees of knowing what's actually going on. Maybe that translates into a precognitive dream, a psychic intuition, and you happen to get it right. Your subconscious delivers you information, and it happens to be true. And then there's this other side of our superconscious slash subconscious that doesn't know everything. And that translates itself into our dreams and visions and imaginations in ways that are almost like our own consciousness's way of interpreting what is actually happening, what is actually occurring. So, you have two types of dreams. You have or two types of visions. The one is your imagination, just giving you some sort of hallucination and interpreting your reality towards you in a very strange and abstract way, the same as it would be in the case of dreams. And I believe the same applies to visions. So basically, there's two parts of us. There's the that we're not totally aware of, that introduces itself to us every now and again, whether through dreams, intuitions, creativity, or visions. And the one part is the part of us that knows, that has that internal knowing, and the other part of it is the part that doesn't. It's trying to figure it out and is using abstract symbology and stories and visuals in order to go ahead and interpret that towards you. So, there's so many layers towards existence, and there's so many layers towards our existence, and most of those layers are undiscovered, but they're becoming discovered day by day, when we especially look at things like near-death experiences and out-of-body experiences. Hey, what's up, man? So good to see you. So good to hope you're keeping well. Good to see you too. And so, if reality is quantum, we are quantum too. We're inextricably connected to the quantum nature of reality, because we are made up of that God, that internal essence, that unified field, that quantum realm of infinite, eternal, and unified entanglement, that it connects every single body in existence. So this is what I've been thinking about lately. I spent time thinking about this, and I am the sort of person that likes to inquire as to the nature of my reality. And these are ultimately my deductions and my interpretations, whether they're right or wrong. I always say time is the bearer of truth, but there's a lot of empirical evidence that's ultimately been revealed and shared in reality, in the field of science, in by our own personal experiences. Because empirical, remember, it means to experience something, and when you experience things, that counts as first-hand evidence. You know, but of course, we can be subjective towards what it is we're experiencing, and we can misinterpret that, that an empirical experience of reality in which it is that we're happening to have. And I've had my own personal experiences. I'm not just looking at science and making these deductions, of what reality is and how reality works. I have my own personal experiences. As many of you know, I developed schizophrenia. Um, and it was quite a scary and terrifying experience at first, and can be at times. Um, but it's taught me a lot of things about my own consciousness and my own mind, and my own subconscious in particular. I've had, as I've explained before, certain precognitive experiences. Um, you know, sorry, just give me a second. And so I've had my own experiences, and they've really left me scratching my head, trying to figure out how what I've experienced is actually possible. And so, being naturally curious and inquisitive, I look into things and I think about things. I'm not claiming to be a genius or an expert. This is just a random guy on earth sharing with you his personal perspective and opinion based on his own personal experiences. I'll be the first to admit that I most certainly don't know everything, but I at least know what I know, or think what I know. And I am absolutely sure that Because you see, the schizophrenic experience, the visual and auditory hallucinations, as clinical as it was, it also was it's quite a supernatural experience, but there's a fine line between a mental illness and a supernatural experience, and if you're unable to differentiate the difference between the sides of that line, that can throw you into more pandemonium and peril within your own mind. So it takes a strong mind to get out of it. I believe 1 out of 100 people get schizophrenia, and very few people actually get rid of it. Some people experience it for 20 years. And I've done a lot of research into it. I've had to, in order to gain a clearer and better understanding as to what has been happening to me. And because of some of the strange supernatural elements towards it, I had ultimately uh, looked done research into certain aspects of it. Like, I wanted to know, do schizophrenic people ever have precognitive experiences where the voice tells them something that's right? I believe that what's happened to me is somehow my brain was fractured enough to create ultimately sort of dreamlike entities that seem to have their own intelligence and personality, but are somehow borrowing from my own personality and intelligence, right? We all have intelligence. But I say that because these voices seem to be quite intelligent, but sometimes quite silly and nonsensical, and sometimes predict the future. And not only am I having these, was I having these auditory hallucinations, but I was having visual hallucinations, which I still have to this day. And as I've said before, some of these visual hallucinations have actually been precognitive. I've seen stuff in the future before it's happened. But on the other end of it, it's also like I'm also seeing my imagination. As I've explained to you, this is how I learned what I told you, is that I've seen two sides to it. The one is the side where it's like my consciousness knows what's going to happen and knows what's happening, and the other is it has no idea and it's formulating uh, subconsciously these pictures and these visuals and these very abstract and creative interpretations of what it thinks is happening or what it thinks it's going to happen. So that's what I say. There's this fine line of the supernatural nature of it and the other nature, which is ultimately just a mental illness and disease. But I've had to make the most of it because, when you're in a situation like that, you don't really have a choice but to put some positive spin on it, to find some value in it, and to make it work in your favor. At least that's what I believed and thought anyway. I believed that I had to turn it around and turn it into my favor. Um, and it was quite difficult to do that. But it's true, you have to have a positive outlook with everything you're doing in life. If you have a defeating attitude towards anything, if you cannot see the value in even the most horrific and horrible things, which is hard to do, more difficult said than done, you know, life becomes a lot more difficult to get through. It becomes a lot more difficult to navigate. If you're, one of the features of schizophrenia is paranoia. And I would say not everyone's paranoid, but maybe we do live in a bit of a paranoid society, where we see elements and symptoms of that. We know we live in an anxious society, but I don't even know if this is just my personal perspective interpreting, because how you feel determines how you see the world, So if you've got a very pessimistic, paranoid perspective, I suppose you begin to paint everything and everyone in that light, and it's a terrible place to be. And it's something that we experience whether you have a mental illness or not. It's our interpretation of reality. Some people, I would say, have that mastered, have that locked down, are quite happy people and carefree people. I used to be one of those people, but I'm not exactly that right now. I've had to get myself back to that point by personal belief and conviction. I had to believe in myself in order to pull myself out of that. I had to believe in myself to do the very difficult things that I'm doing. It's so easy to not believe in yourself. It's so easy to expect the worst to happen. It's so easy to expect the worst out of people. It's so easy to expect worst case scenarios, and our fear gets the better of us. And I suppose that's one thing I've been is a fearful person, because I'm a paranoid person because of that fear. And look, I'm sharing a lot of information about myself because this is my YouTube, this is my Patreon, this is my form of expression. This is what I would like to share, and hopefully people respond to it, or they don't, that's okay. And maybe it helps someone. I'm just sharing my thoughts. Sometimes I worry, am I too self-absorbed, and whatever the case may be. But it's kind of hard not to be when you're in your own mind and you're alone all of the time, and you're constantly in your own head, and you are your number one companion. It's kind of difficult not to be absorbed and engrossed in your own thought, your own life. I think it's natural, for people to experience, um, especially in such a fear-based reality. Because this reality, it inspires fear, it inspires anxiety. So the natural remedy towards that is thinking of how to solve it, how to figure it out, how to change things, how to be proactive in your approach towards not only surviving but thriving here on Earth. And so, I probably shouldn't care about that. I'm expressing myself. Um, I think it's important to do that, and that's what I'm going to do. You know, um, but yeah. So we're going from quantum physics to schizophrenia to interpersonal beliefs, which I think are important. You know. So yeah, what is it saying? So attitude is so important. It sounds so cliche, but it is true. Because at the end of the day, your attitude is everything. How your attitude's going to determine what you believe is possible. Your attitude's going to determine how you tackle and treat situations. Your attitude is going to determine if you do something or if you don't. If your attitude's based in fear, you're going to be stifled. You're not going to do anything. You're not going to act on your imagination and creativity. I believe our imagination and creativity is one of the most amazing, beautiful gifts we've ever been given. And I personally believe that it's quite sad for people not to exercise such a wonderful, powerful gift and act upon it in the best way possible. Because our imagination is like this portal towards infinite reality of imagination that exists within inside of us. And for a lot of the people, it is their escape. For me, my imagination in many times is an escape. But I don't want to be one of those people that just imagine stuff. I want to be one of those people that create what I imagine, you know, because I don't want to look back in my life and be like, wow. Because for me, my imagination has always been an outlet. It's always been an escape. I used to watch Pokemon when I was younger, and Pokemon for me was so imaginative, and for me, it was an escape out of the depressed state I was in. So, I use my imagination as an escape, which doesn't sound too great, but it helps me. It serves me a purpose. It makes me happy because I create these worlds in my mind, and then I create these worlds in what it is that I create. Whether it's in particular this application I'm creating now, these designs. And it sounds kind of sad to say that, but ultimately that is actually the truth. I use imagination as an escape of reality, and I exist in these wondrous realities in my mind while simultaneously existing in this reality. And I believe that that's the quantum nature of me, of us, is this imagination we have that we share that allows us to conceive things at the speed of thought. So for me, to be honest with you, my imagination has been my salvation. It's helped me so much. It's helped me escape a reality I felt stuck in, or it's helped me repaint reality in my mind. But I believe it's important not to only live in your imagination, but to bring that imagination into reality so that it becomes something that is tangible, because it's amazing to imagine all these, but why not just imagine them? Why not create them? Whether you're writing a children's book, whether you're creating artwork, music, application, a story, game, idealistically, things that have a lot of value, things that can help people in as many ways as possible. So, that's where I live. That's why I've been quiet lately, because I'm always creating. I'm constantly programming, because I'm creating this world that I want to bring into this world. And I love imagination. Um, I love using my imagination. And when you see what I'm working on, and when I explain to you the imaginative process of it, for me, that's something I feel very happy and proud about, because this is this world I'm living in my head, and nobody is going to get to see it if I don't bring it out into reality. I want the world to become real, because that makes me happy. I believe if you find a place in your mind that is really happy and beautiful and wondrous, and you basically go ahead and create it in something physical and tangible and bring it into this world, you're sharing that happiness. You're sharing that imagination with people. Like Pokemon, some guy, autistic guy who created the storyline, basically had created this imaginative world of Pokemon in his head, where everything's happy and everything's friendly and nice and wholesome and virtuous and righteous and beautiful, and had created it and brought it into this reality and shared it with us. And it's so amazing and interesting, because someone shares their imagination with you, and then they're contributing towards your imagination, you know? And I think if you can use your imagination to find a happy place and then to bring that happy place into reality and share that with people, I think that's an awesome use of imagination, you know? Our imagination can also haunt us. It can also kill us. It can also distort us. It can, imagination is good or bad. It depends how it's used. And that's why in the beginning of this video, I said human nature is so beautiful, but it's also so scary. On the one hand, we can be so excited to trust people, so excited to love people. And on the other hand, because of our experiences that we've had, very fearful to trust people, very fearful to love people. And I would say the most responsible thing is to be cautious of that. Be cautious of trusting people too much, and be cautious of not trusting people enough, which sounds crazy, but somehow you have to sort of juggle that, and that's why God comes into hand and faith, because like we can only have so much control over our lives. Beyond that, it's out of our hands. So we have to rely upon having faith in something greater than us, having faith in God, having faith in goodness, having faith in virtues, values, and principles. Because it's great and well to see values and principles of honesty, integrity, loyalty, but our reality depends on your perspective of how you're perceiving reality and how you're experiencing it. Doesn't seem to always reflect that. The world has seemed, and sometimes I wonder, am I being too negative? Is it just painting my perspective of the world? But sometimes it seems like, you fear human nature, you fear the danger of humanity. And, but on the other hand, it's like, I don't want to be so pessimistic and grim and live within the fear of reality. I want to be able to believe that these virtues exist for a reason. They're not just things we read of, they're not just words, but they are real things that people have and people express. And I know that's true. There are good people out there, They're good people with good values, good morals, good virtues. I'm not saying I'm one of them. I aspire to be one of them. I aspire to get better as a person. I aspire to be better and not to become worse. I don't want to become totally vain and arrogant. I want to become, I suppose, meek, righteous, and humble, and expressive and kind. And so as you grow older, you're either going in either direction of, am I just becoming more sour towards reality, more sour towards people, more sour towards my expectations of what can take place? Or am I, growing strength, growing wisdom, being a little bit more cautious, and ultimately becoming a lot more trusting in the good aspects of humanity, the good aspects of human nature? So you see how I've circled this conversation back, that say that humans scare me, and they have scared me for a long time, but humans also make me feel things that are good, make me feel that a world like Pokemon that has all these characters that are so virtuous, so little evil, so full of honesty, integrity, loyalty, camaraderie, it makes me believe in those things again. It makes me believe that those are real things that can be shared and people have. And ultimately, the reason I went into schizophrenia is because I broke down. You could say my brain broke, got decimated, destroyed. And part of it was, there's multiple varying factors and reasons, but part of it was fear and paranoia and anxiety and the trauma of that constant fear that just broke my brain eventually. That's what it did. It just broke my brain. And so, if I seem confident or have seemed confident, it's it's not always the case, because I feel fear a lot of the time. I worry about things. And there was this quote I came across. I think it was by Mark Twain. I'm not sure. It says, "I become an old man, and I feared many great things in my life, which none of them happened to become true." And I find that so interesting, especially from an older, wiser person's perspective, because this is a guy that's looking back in his life and saying, like, all of these things I feared and worried about and spent so much time being anxious over didn't actually happen. So our imagination can be our greatest asset, or it can be our greatest, how do I say, enemy. Your own imagination can be your enemy. So I guess maybe what I try to do is I try to use that imagination to imagine the best, not the worst. Imagine things that are beautiful, not things that are ugly, like the ugly human nature, beautiful human nature. But as I say, guys, this is just an opinion you're hearing. It's nothing more than someone's opinion you're hearing. It's nothing more than someone's experience that you're hearing. You're your own individual, you're your own person, you have your own mind, you make up your own deductions. This is my experience, it's my perspective. I'm indecisive in some of the things I expect to believe. But one thing I can tell you is that being negative is not really going to help you. It's like there's this one guy when I was in a bad place, my brother's friend, and he said that all he does is he's just always optimistic. He told himself to always be optimistic no matter what happens. And I used to be like that until some things happened, until I had lost faith in God, humanity, myself, people. I lost faith in everything. And I'd forgotten all of that. And somebody had ultimately reminded me of that. And I was like, yeah, why not? Why not just be super optimistic about everything? Why not be optimistic, you know? And he said something like, when he's optimistic, he finds things go the right way, things happen, things work out. And it's true because I did that and I started remembering that again. And yeah, uh, yet again, I was proved that my fearful imaginations were not so much to be trusted and not so much to be believed. So, imagination, I believe, is maybe quantum, maybe, I mean, it's an invisible force within us. And somehow it connects us to reality and connects reality to us. And sometimes I feel like a lot of the movies we watch happen to predict the future, if not influence it, if not both. So I believe there's something supernatural about imagination. I believe maybe within imagination we're accessing this elements of this unified field, these quantumly entangled realms that connect the past, present, and future. And sometimes it seems so strange that the things happening in these movies happen in real life. That's not to believe that any imaginative thing anyone creates is a perfect representation of reality or what will become in reality. But it's still interesting. It's a perspective as well, yet again. I'm sharing an opinion yet again, but I've just looked at movies and I thought, what if somehow when we're accessing this imaginative force within us, we are accessing elements of the future? We're accessing elements of our own reality. And why wouldn't that be the case? Because when you were born on Earth, you were born in a world that had a certain imagination. People's imaginations were 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 at a certain phase. Like if we look at every decade, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s. Sorry, I said that already. The 80s, the 90s, the early 2000s. We've seen how culture changes, and the creative imaginations, whether it's in books, movies, mainstream, it changes with every decade. I suppose maybe humans are gaining more intelligence, more consciousness, more awareness. We must be, and that must be affecting reality because we don't really have slavery, as an example, in the same way we used to. We don't have slavery in the same way we used to. People have grown to become more cognizant of of values, virtues, morals, laws, principles. You know, and it's sort of become strange and distorted with social media. But hey, at least we're not, for the most part, enslaving people through racial segregation, as an example. So I would say, in that way, consciousness and humanity and civilization's mind sphere has been evolving and changing. It is constantly evolving and constantly changing. It's influencing what technology gets created, and the technology that gets created is therefore influencing our imagination further. And so when you were born in a certain creative, imaginative framework where there are however many people on the earth, however many imaginations in each one of those people. The mainstream imagination that seemed to be portraying what was popular, what was in, or what was made to be popular. Our imagination gets reflected in advertising, the artwork, the music, the movies. A lot of people's imagination goes unnoticed, unfortunately, and maybe that's where some of the best imagination actually lies and exists. Maybe there's this amazing movie or this amazing script, this amazing piece of art that's so unbelievable, but you haven't seen it. I haven't seen it before. Maybe there's this beautiful song you haven't heard before. So there's two aspects of the imaginative sphere. One is the mainstream, and the other is the actual reality of it. And I find that quite interesting because some dude may be imagining stuff light years ahead, but nobody ever hears him, or lady writes an incredibly visionary book. And that may not be an accurate representation of the mainstream imagination. The mainstream imagination may be a lot different compared to that. But nonetheless, we still seem as though, and this is my um, assertion, that every day there's a new imaginative framework that exists here on Earth in the minds and hearts of people. And it evolves and progresses throughout time with the introduction of increased information, increased learning, increased technology, everything you're exposed to. Like 30 years ago, we didn't have smartphones that were giving us perspectives and visions from all over the world. Of course, it can seem like these social media and the algorithms are very siloed, but still, we're exposed to more information and more imagination than we've ever been exposed to before. You are exposed to more imaginative expressions and more information in the form of intellectual information and in the form of imaginative based information. And so you can imagine how our minds are so much more out there than civilization may have been 30 years ago, because there's so much information, there's so much creativity, creative expressions. And I don't know, that's obviously affecting people. It's affecting what they make. It's affecting what they create. It's affecting how they think, how they treat themselves, how they treat each other. Sometimes it's not always good. Sometimes you can be stuck in a very negative, pessimistic algorithm, a black mirror that's reflecting to your own personal interests and keeping you siloed and stuck in a perpetual bubble. Or, you can be in a very happy, positive, and optimistic space, and maybe your algorithm reflects that black mirror to you. Everyone has their own little black mirror, and I suppose it's an extension of what they've been paying attention to, what they've been interested in, what they've been valuing. Um, and these algorithms are somehow reflecting back to people, are influencing what they're interested in, and also reflecting back to them what they're interested in. Because I don't believe we're only so totally subjective towards being influenced. I don't believe we're such docile creatures that are just influenced by everything we see. We are intelligent creatures. We have opinionated perspectives towards things, So, yeah, I'm saying that we are quantum, and I believe imagination in that way and quantum is just a word to explain the scientific aspects of this, but this interdimensional unified field of consciousness, spirit, God, that is interwoven into all aspects of reality and interconnects all of us, including our imagination. And so when you dream, that's another outlet of your subconscious reorganizing your imagination to you, which can be interpreted spiritually, precognitively, and also psychologically, you know. So yeah, I find it interesting. I think the greatest gift humanity has ever been given, being made in the image of God, is imagination. Image. We're imaging in our mind. We're creating images in our mind. And the most powerful thing about us is our imagination. Our imagination has conceived planes, cars, phones, beautiful art pieces, music, unbelievable storylines that are so compelling and purpose driven and intellectually orchestrated. Things that make us think and question and are inspired and feel in different ways. And so this imagination is within our spirit, and it's a way of somebody expressing their spirit, and it's the spirit affecting the spirit of others. Like a song can disturb your spirit, a movie can disturb your spirit. That's obviously a phrase, but it can. Or it can uplift your spirit, it can inspire your spirit. Yet again, another phrase, but it can. And so, what we're absorbing, what we're ingesting is programming our imagination. And we're seeing the results of that programming in our dreams, in our visions, in our creative undertakings, in our mind. You know, Either for better or for the worse. As I say, your imagination can be extremely evil or it can be extremely benevolent. Okay, it can be extremely amazing or it can be the worst thing you've ever seen. But fortunately for us in this reality we live in, humans are empathetic enough to have feelings and to care about ethics, values, morals, and virtues, to the point that we have collectively created a civilization that does not look up to evil for the most part. It does not wish to partake in evil. It fears evil. It stays away from it. Yet again, not entirely, because people also are incredibly intrigued by evil. Crime investigation channels, so forth and so on, and stories. Horror movies are an example of an evil imagination. Okay, I'm not saying that somebody who creates a horror movie is evil. I'm just saying that that they're exercising the imagination of evil. They're creating evil within through their imagination in this fictional world or story that they're creating. And so imagination can haunt and scare the living daylights out of you. It can debilitate you, it can destroy you, it can give you nightmares and night terrors. Or it can do the complete and total opposite. It can be your outlet towards paradise within your own mind. You know? So we have an incredible tool, and unfortunately, potentially an awful weapon Like, for instance, the atomic bomb. Somebody had to have imagined that. Like, how do we go ahead and create a bomb that's so, causes so much devastating destruction that it has the ability to wipe out life as we know it? Somebody had that imagination. Who imagined a gun? Who imagined spears and knives? You know, hey, at the end of the day, guys, uh, thankfully, human nature has proved itself over and over again in the world we live in. It's not a total barbaric world. It's it's organized and it's structured. We may not enjoy all of those elements, but there's a certain level of accountability that prohibits evil. We don't accept evil. We don't accept these things of abuse and this and that for the most part. If you look at our civilization and our laws and how they've evolved, adapted, and changed over time, we can look at that as a reflection of humanity's mind and humanity's efforts in order to move towards the directions of higher values, virtues, and ethics. So that's a good thing. That's a really good thing. The world we happen to live in and the human body that we have, the neurological processes, the emotional capabilities, empathy, and so forth and so on, have destroyed us in the past in our warlike nature, our lust for war, our lust for conflict. But have also resolved that, have also moved away from that. So, yeah. So, we're not only we're entangled by all of these things. We're entangled by our history. You know, Kamala Harris said it best is that you're not just a coconut that fell out of a tree. You're an individual that was born. And I know some people may not like Kamala Harris. That's fine. You know, I'm not a greatest fan, but she did say something that was really interesting. She said, "You're not just a coconut that fell out of a tree. You're an individual that was born in a historical context. There's not just you. There's a whole world. There's a whole history to this world. There are variables that led up to this current moment in civilization and reality that we're experiencing right now. You exist in a context. You yourself are a context, but you as the context also exist in a context, which is one of the wisest things I've heard her say. And it's so absolutely true. And I don't know how relative that is, especially if we live in an eternal infinite universe as eternal infinite beings, because there may be many contexts out there if it is true, that there is life beyond us. And sometimes I wonder and imagine, what if there was like some evil planet where people and their laws just evolved to become more evil? But that doesn't seem to be the case mostly, because we look in animal kingdom, we look in human nature, and we see that human nature is a good thing. That the nature of animals is loving. We see love and relationships within nature, within the animal kingdom, and we see it within humanity. So yeah, I mean, this is just I'm just thinking out loud. I'm just sharing this. I'm sorry for touching my nose and sneezing. I'm a little bit allergic to cats sometimes. And also when I get nervous, because I'm a bit nervous right now, it's a bit nerve wracking sharing your opinions and perspectives with people, which I used to want to do so much, but I'm not so inclined to do it anymore lately, you know. But I figured that you have to just share yourself and ultimately not care. There's people who are going to enjoy it, and there's people that are not, and that's just ultimately how it works. And I'm totally fine and happy with that. I would like to express myself way freely. I don't have to worry about these things. And that's what everyone should do. They should just be themselves for the sake of being themselves. So, yeah, going back to this quantum nature of reality, uh, I admire your bravery and strength, Jess. Needed your words today. Thank you. Oh, well, that's amazing. That's really good feedback. I really do appreciate hearing that. And thank you for sharing that with me. I really do appreciate that. Yeah, I appreciate that because sometimes I come in here and it's like, what do I even speak about? And it's like, well, I'm sharing my mind. I'm alone most of the time. It's like, let me just share what I've been thinking about. And so that's what I do. And then you start doing that, and you're like wondering, oh, are people, all these fears, all these stupid fears, like people are going to start thinking he's self-absorbed, he's high and mighty, all these things. And it's like one of the things I've had to learn is like you just have to not care. People are always going to have their opinion of you. They're always going to have a perspective of you. And sometimes it helps to gain an awareness of people's perspectives of you. But in many cases, that can be stifling when we're so focused on crafting our image, crafting our expression to appease the interest of others, to fit in, to not upset people, to not anger people, we're losing ourselves for the sake of making other people feel comfortable. And yeah, that's a certain level that is polite thing to do, but on another level, it's also polite for people to let you be who you are. Instead of expecting you to continually conform. I don't expect people to conform. I way prefer it when people are a lot more open with themselves, with their thoughts, with their feelings. I prefer that, but some people don't. Some people don't like uh, people who are too expressive. Some people don't like people who have too many opinions, you know? And I would like to just say that I don't want to think about that. I don't want to care about that. I don't want that to be something that's going to now become fake and manipulative in crafting my personality and my words and my expression for the sake of appeasing other people's interests. I don't think that's a wise thing to do for anyone. Yes, it helps not to be malevolent and disrespectful, to be disrespectful to people, but but not at the cost of dampening and downplaying your own personality and your own spirit. Human beings are great and they have a wonderful imagination, but sometimes that imagination is so unbelievably stifling and incorrect. Humans think we have it all figured out, but we don't. Oh, there's a whole lot of things I've got to fix today. Thank goodness it's Saturday. I prefer people who express themselves. I prefer people that speak their mind, that tell the truth. I give people space, when they speak to me, when they speak about their dreams and this and that, to listen to them, you know, without without judging them. I listen to people, but I'm finding in my experience, people don't do the same to you. They will actually persecute you based on your behavior, based on your words, based on your own personal self expression. They'll persecute you for being different. They'll persecute you for thinking different. They'll persecute you for being excited about your imaginations, your creations, your goals, your aspirations, and your dreams. They'll do that. So then the question becomes, what is the right thing to do? Is the right thing to constantly pander towards people and to downplay yourself all the time and never accomplish and achieve anything? Because you won't accomplish and achieve anything if you keep downplaying yourself. If you keep pandering, you won't accomplish anything. I guarantee you right now, if you keep downplaying yourself and pandering your own expression and your own personality for the sake of fitting in and appealing to others, you will never accomplish anything. You're conforming. You're not a unique creative expression, which you inherently are. We are all inherently unique creative expressions. And you will never accomplish anything significant or great if you're constantly trying to fit into a box that people are trying to put you in. That box is where you'll die. You'll die in that box. Which is ironic because they put us in a box after we died and put us in the ground. Because that's where you go when you let people put you in a box. You die. I'm not in a box. I don't want to be in a box. I'm so tired of having to be worried about what people are going to think about me. And as I launch my app and become more successful, I'm just simply not going to care. And people are going to perceive that as arrogance. They're going to perceive that however it is that they may want to see that. I'm not an arrogant person. I can have a conversation with the homeless person on the side of the road like they're normal and not have a single judgment towards him. But I'm also someone who has my own imagination. I have my own personality. I have my own uniqueness. Okay, and I'm not saying I'm almighty because of it, but that is what I have. This it is what helps me survive. It is what has helped me thrive in life. So now I need to quench that and dull that down. The thing that has helped me change my life, the thing that has helped me empower myself, empower my life, is who I am. is my creativity, is my imagination. And so the thing that is putting food in my mouth, the thing that is going to give me a future, you want me to quench? Are you going to put food in my mouth? Are you going to give me money to keep quiet? No, you're not going to give me money to keep quiet. So then why should I keep quiet? Are you going to help me survive here on earth? If I keep quiet and I fit in your little box, are you going to help me survive here on earth? No, you're not. You're not going to do that. You know? Why would you? Why should you? No, I need to survive. And here on earth, in order to survive, you need to be creative. You need to have an imagination. And now, if people are telling you to quench your uniqueness and your personality to fit in their little box, they're asking you to quench the thing that helps you stay alive, the thing that helps you thrive, the thing that helps you innovate, the thing that helps you create, the thing that helps you become creative. They're asking, and the reason people do this most of the time is because of inferiority and superiority complexes and insecurities. Why would somebody give a shit about how you are and who you are if it's not actually affecting their life directly in a negative way? Why do they give a shit? Because it's all about insecurity. It's all about people's own way of interpreting the world. Everyone thinks they're right. Yeah, sure, you can be right, I can be right, but I mean, I don't really care if you're right. As long as it's not really right or wrong, as long as it's not negatively affecting my life in a very evident way, I don't care. Okay, so this is what I'm going through, and this is why I exist in my imagination. And I said to you, my imagination is an escape because I've gone through so many levels of persecution of being my own person. People judging me, doubting me, and this and that. And they keep doubting me, and I don't mind them doubting me because I keep proving them wrong over and over again. And so I make a game out of it. I make a game out of life. I make a game out of living. Because honestly, why not? If life's going to be the way it is, I might as well make the most of it. I might as well turn it into a game. I might as well have fun with it. you know so there's so many lessons I've had to learn. Like, on the one hand, it's like, yeah, hey, trust people, and then also don't trust people. Because let's be honest, guys, people may not be incredibly ruthlessly evil, but oh my goodness, people are also fucking ridiculous and full of shit. I'm just going to go ahead and say that. Which is obviously, sounding like me being a little bit judgmental or whatever. But I mean, and I say people are full of shit is because, like, why do my dreams affect you? Why does my expression affect you? Why should it bother you so much? Why are you using it as a reason or excuse to give a reason as to your own unhappiness? I'm not responsible for your unhappiness. My personal expression and my creativity is not responsible for your unhappiness. I didn't create any weapons. I didn't create any bombs. Evil masterminded plots to hurt people and destroy them. I don't do that. So why should what I do bother you? Why is it bothering you? Why should what I say bother you? People need to learn to chill. People need to learn to let people be themselves, which is quite a contradictory statement. But, like, yo, I mean, if somebody's personality is affecting you, that says more about you than it says about them. If you can't control your own mind, your own personality, to not be phased and affected by things, that just says everything about you. It tells you who you are. You know, somebody who is unhappy and is projecting on people and blaming it on other people's expression. Like, no, you know. So I'll be honest with you. There's two sides of me. The one is I just want to shout out to the world and say whatever I want to say, and the other is like I'm too scared to do that. You know, and it's like I've, if we keep living in a box because of our fears, where is it going to take us? When has playing it safe ever gotten somebody significant reward? You know, when has playing it safe and playing a safe personality. Give me a second. When has playing it safe ever created something remarkable? Created, changed the world, helped people? You know, when has living in a box that people are putting you in helped you spread your wings and fly? When has it done that? You know? And it's like we spend so much time worrying about what other people think. My advice and what I'm trying to teach myself is, that doesn't mean you have to be so totally loud and open and just say whatever you want to say. But, you know, it also means that you shouldn't be so totally quiet and just fit in a box. I heard this guy's interview. He's speaking about arrogance. He's like, most people that will see you succeeding and winning will call you arrogant. This is just an example. And they're calling you arrogant because you have something they don't have. Whether it's money, whether it's personality or whatever, they're calling it arrogant. And it's like, what he gave really good advice. He said that you should embrace arrogance. Obviously that's a bit of a loaded statement, but he said you should embrace arrogance. You should embrace the true nature of you, the uniqueness of you. People are going to perceive you shining and spreading your wings as arrogant for their own personal reasons. And then so you continue to live in a box. Look, arrogance is not a great thing. I've got into different interpretations of arrogance because arrogance can be a very rude and disrespectful thing. But if people are interpreting your own personality and imagination and expression as arrogance, then that's a different story. That has to do with more with your unique individual identity than it has to do with a belligerent and harmful nature. You know. So yeah, I mean, my advice to myself and other people is don't don't live in a box. I mean, hey, if you want to live in a box and it makes you happy, go for it. I'm not telling you exactly what to do, but I mean, if you want to live outside of the box, hey, go for it. But don't let people corner you into a box of their own expectations of you. Because what is that actually going to achieve? What is that going to give you? It'll give you nothing. We're just constantly pandering towards people out of fear of something going wrong, people not liking us, people hating us. And it's like, wow, those are a lot of things to fear. But those are fears that people go through on a regular basis all the time. And I'm not perfect. You know, I haven't got it all figured out. This is just my perspective as it stands right now. This is what I'm telling myself in this present moment, and telling you. Sorry. So, on the one hand, I'm cautious of people. On the other hand, I don't want to become so totally pessimistic of people. But I'm cautious of people because people have proved me right and proved me wrong many times. You know, and that's why I mostly stay alone. Although it's not that healthy to do that, but I do because I'm just in my own creative bubble, my own workflow, and making my own stuff happen. Because if I'm overextending myself with too many other people and getting nothing in return, it's not accomplishing anything for me. It's not helping me create what I want to create. I need to create. My hope uh, has been to create, to sit and create, to isolate myself, to not expose myself to unfavorable circumstances and people. And it's a safer bet, you know. But it's like you can't be so totally alone forever. But I don't mind. I really don't mind. It's for me a lot of the times it just feels like the safer, more practical, and structured and responsible thing to do. Sit down, stay in your own lane, focus on your own stuff, and make your own stuff happen. Because nobody's gonna do it for you. You got to do it for yourself. You know, nobody's gonna do it for you. So that's where I'm at now. I'm working uh, uh, 7 days a week. Sometimes I'm working till 5 a.m. in the morning, just constantly working.
And to be honest with you, that's also another escape. It's not, I understand how someone can be a workaholic, but work is good. Work produces results. Work creates things. You have to sit down and make things happen. Like, I'm not just some spiritualist that's going to tell you, oh yeah, just manifest your stuff. It's like, no, you have to get down and dirty and practical and make things happen. You have to create stuff. You have to put in the work. You have to do it. You're not going to wish it into existence. You're not going to wish change into existence. You're not going to wish meaningful, impactful change into existence. You have to create it. You have to make it happen. And nobody's going to do that for you. It's only you that's going to do it for yourself. So I just believe it's sometimes good to be focused on your own goals, your own dreams and aspirations, and make them happen. Instead of listening to people not believe in you and share your ideas, that does nothing. Sharing ideas does nothing. We have to create these ideas. We have to make them happen. And then people judge you and this and that. That, you see, it's just so much easier and better to just stay away from that and to stay focused on what you're doing, and to believe in yourself and to believe in your own world. I don't need to convince people of how I feel. I don't need to convince people of what I believe. What really matters is how I feel to me and what I believed, to me. Whether I believe in myself or you don't, that doesn't matter. What matters is, do I believe in myself? Do I believe what I believe in? And that's going to make the world a difference. So yeah, that's the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. It's been all over the place, to be honest with you, but that's how my mind works. That's how my brain works. So if you've enjoyed it, I appreciate that. And thanks again to everyone on everything. And thanks a lot, Paige, for the lovely comments. Yeah, I will see you guys soon, and I hope you guys keep well. Bye-bye.